You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 4th of November 2025 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Tom Edwards. Coming up on today's programme, it's Election Day in the US. Millions are heading to the polls. The results will test Democrats and offer an early read on the mood ahead of next year's midterms. Chris Chermak will help us unpack what this all means. Chris, what are the big races that you're watching?
Tom, this really is the first sort of bellwether for Donald Trump's administration 1 year after his election, and we'll get into a number of races. There's races in New Jersey, Virginia and California. They all have their internal dynamics as well as a referendum on the national picture, so it's a messy thing to look at. We'll get into as much as we can.
More from Chris later. We'll also be in Italy to hear about a museum row involving Steven Tyler. Yes, that one. It sounds crazy. Can the Aerosmith man get a grip and draw the line under the matter? We'll find out. Also ahead,
Mr. Sato was the leader for Asian filmmakers to work hand in hand.
We'll be hearing from two up-and-coming directors featured at the Tokyo International Film Festival. All that and more ahead here on The Briefing with me, Tom Edwards. A very warm welcome to this Tuesday edition of the programme. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Great to have you with us on The Briefing. Let's kick things off, as mentioned, in the United States. I'm delighted to say I'm joined now in the studio by Monocle Senior News Editor, Mr. Chris Chermak. Hello, Chris.
Mr. Chris Chermak. Hello, Tom.
Sometimes a little formality is just the right thing. Chris, you already alluded to so much happening today and over the next 24 hours or so. Where do you want to start?
I mean, there's so many places we could start, but maybe with the broad picture, as I mentioned, first of all, that in some ways this looks like it is the first big test for Donald Trump, right? It is the first time that there are going to be elections in different states for a candidate since Donald Trump was elected. And on the face of it, it looks like it's going to be a good day for Democrats. They are leading in most of the key races that we're going to be looking at. You've talked about in the past also New York is a big one, but also New Jersey, Virginia and California. They lead at least in all of those. But nonetheless, you can't make too much of the national implications, Tom. I think it's important to say that because each of these races have their own complexities, their own reasons for why one candidate is doing better than the other. And even just the fact that Democrats are winning at this point in these races, I mean, it's pretty common, frankly. Whenever you have an election after a president was elected, people tend to swing a little bit the other way. So it's been very interesting for me to follow how this has been going, how much focus there is on, this is the moment that, we challenge Donald Trump. And yet at the same time, it really isn't.
Look, as you said, it is. These elections are always treated as a bellwether. The midterms next year certainly will be, and the stakes are that bit higher. Is it instructive, or will it be instructive to look not just at the campaigning, but at the outcomes of these votes? And we'll talk in more detail about a couple of them in a moment, and try and sort of extrapolate what it means for 2026? Or is that, I sense from what you've just said, that we need to even do that with some caution?
Well, we do with some caution, but that is exactly what people are trying to do right now. And the way that they're doing that is maybe to look at the messaging of some of the candidates and to say what is working, what is appealing to voters. Is it sort of the far left Mamdani in New York? Is that the thing that works with voters? Is it more the center left Democrats, say Abigail Spanberger in Virginia? Is that the way forward? So there's going to be a lot of look at messaging. Same with Republicans. Do you want to be completely tied to Donald Trump? Do you want to carve out your own personality? Does that matter? That's the kind of stuff that people are looking at in this election.
Chris, you mentioned Virginia, Jersey. We'll talk a little bit about New York in a second with our Ed Stocker when we chat to him. But what's the big narrative in some of these other key votes? Is it about the ongoing shutdown? It's 35 days, whatever it is, how that is impacting things? Is the narrative about, do we want Trumpism locally? What's the narratives that are shaping some of these key votes?
It's kind of more the second, if you want to look at that way. Do we want Trump in a sort of local way? And to take a few of these, Virginia is an interesting case because this is a state that has become Democratic, used to be conservative, is now typically Democratic. At least that's how it votes in national elections. But it also does have currently a Republican governor. So this is why it's one that Democrats are eyeing. They're hoping that they can flip this. They can make it a Democratic state. Again, this is Abigail Spanberger. She's a former congresswoman, and she's running against the current lieutenant governor, Winsome Earl Sears, who is a very conservative personality in the U.S., in Virginia. Although, interestingly, she's a conservative on policy, but she's kind of gone back and forth on Donald Trump. Donald Trump hasn't really endorsed her, at least given her a full-throated endorsement. She didn't give him one, so it's an interesting case a little bit as well about, is it like the cult of Donald Trump that is succeeding at the moment, or is it actually the policy? Because she kind of leads more on the policy than she does on the personality, if you will. And Abigail Spanberger is a sort of more of a middle-of-the-road Democrat, former CIA officer as well, credited with helping Democrats retake the House in the midterms in Donald Trump's first term. So she's an interesting case of the kind of middle-of-the-road centrist. Is that the message that Democrats want, as you say, going forward a year from now?
And it's interesting, Trump is Trump. He shoots from the hip, he talks for himself. He is kind of positioned as the Republican big dog, although really he's just the Trump big dog. On the other side, though, on the Democrat side, there aren't so many big dogs, but some of them, they can let off the leash from now and again. I gather former President Barack Obama actually popped up both in Virginia, I think, and in Jersey this past weekend.
In particular in New Jersey, and that's the interesting one because it's very close. Abigail Spanberger, it looks like, will probably win Virginia. New Jersey is the one that is closer. This is also traditionally Democratic state, and yet they've had Republican governors in the past. So again, this is why you can't make too much of the national side of it, but it's a state that Donald Trump had made inroads in, particularly with Hispanics, with Black Americans as well. So this is one that's being very closely watched, and that's what prompted even Obama, say, to make an appearance, because Jack Ciattarelli, he's this sort of MAGA Republican, full-throated endorser of Donald Trump, and he is giving Mikey Sherrill, who's the anti-Trump Democrat, really a run for her money in this race. It's just down to a few percentage points, so it could go either way. And this is really this interesting test, right, of how things have shifted as well, because Trump has made inroads in working class Democrats. That's where he has succeeded. And so it'll be interesting to see if they continue to follow him in, if you will, Ciattarelli in this case, or if they go back to Democrats.
I can't remember whether this is a clip from Newark or from Norfolk, Virginia. As I said, Obama sort of did a little bit of a tour around some of these key hotspots over the weekend, but we have got a little clip of what he had to say. Let's hear from former President Obama.
Every day, this White House offers up a fresh batch of lawlessness and recklessness, mean-spiritedness, and just plain craziness. Our country and our politics are in a pretty dark place right now.
It's interesting when you listen to that, Tom, because this has been one of the debates around this election. Do you lean into the national stuff, the lawlessness, as Obama put it, or do you lean into simpler things? In the case of New Jersey, what's interesting is they currently have a Democratic governor. He's unpopular. He's about as unpopular as Donald Trump is. And if you speak to people on the ground there, and even the candidates, they say affordability is the issue. It is not the threat to democracy, the lawlessness that we're seeing in the country. So that's, I think, going to be one of these interesting dynamics as well. Is it really that big national stuff and whether democracy is a threat, or is it simpler pocketbook issues that are really going to decide this?
Chris, we're going to keep a weather eye on this. I've just got to tell you, we actually get some breaking news here on the briefing. Dick Cheney, one of the sort of titans of contemporary US politics, has died at the age of 84. The former VP, of course, served under George W. Bush. Chris, fast-moving story. Some response, of course, he's been immortalised amazingly in film. He's viewed as a tyrant, as a hero by some. A quick reaction to the news about Dick Cheney.
It is incredible. I mean, he was an incredible figure in Republican politics. I think it shows how far we have moved in Republican politics, that he has not been particularly a force in the last few years. But yes, he was the person behind George W. Bush, absolutely the architect of, say, the Iraq War, along with Don Rumsfeld. He had such an important role in American politics throughout the last few decades, even going back to the 1990s. He was defense secretary as well. So he is a giant of Republican circles. And all I can think at this point when you read that kind of breaking news is how much has changed in the world, right? That someone like Dick Cheney has not been a force in the last few years because the Republican Party has changed so much, but he was a giant of Republican conservative circles for many, many decades.
Chris Chomak, great to get your reflections both on these important votes happening today, but of course on the life of Dick Cheney, albeit briefly. And actually, let's interrogate Dick Cheney's life. As I said, a divisive figure for sure. Let's look back on his life and times now with Andrew Muller.
The vice presidency of the United States is one of the strangest jobs in global politics. The holder of the office is all at once extremely close to awesome power, yet miles away from any power at all. So long as the occupant of the White House stays healthy and lucky, the vice president is usually a ceremonial eunuch, sent on diplomatic visits to ghastly places the president can't be bothered with, engaged to speak at state fairs teeming with uncomprehending riffraff, or confined to their opulent quarters, wistfully reading biographies of John Wilkes Booth. Many who have done the job have hated it. John Adams, the very first vice president, griped that "my country has in its wisdom contrived for me the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived or his imagination conceived." John Nance Garner, vice president to Franklin D. Roosevelt, legendarily growled that the position was not worth a bucket of warm spit. He may not actually have said spit. Thomas Marshall, vice president to Woodrow Wilson, is credited with a joke about two brothers, one who ran away to sea, one who became vice president, and from neither of whom was any more heard. Richard Bruce Cheney was never going to be one of those vice presidents. He was born in Lincoln, Nebraska on January 30th, 1941, and raised substantially in Casper, Wyoming. He was a bright but wayward young man, smart enough to get into Yale, not disciplined enough to stay there, and a repeat customer of Wyoming's traffic police. He was, like many middle-class young American men, a serial dodger of the Vietnam draft, in his case by being an apparently perpetual student, then a married man before 26, then a father. It was waspishly noted that his first daughter, Elizabeth, later a politician herself, was born 9 months and 2 days after the draft was extended to married men without children. Cheney's ascent of the political greasy pole began properly in 1969. Having finally completed his political science studies, he became an intern to Wisconsin's Republican Congressman William Steiger. Shortly afterwards, Cheney began making himself useful to former Illinois Congressman, now counselor to President Richard M. Nixon, Donald Rumsfeld. Dick Cheney acquired a reputation as an efficient functionary and survived his service in Nixon's administration unscathed by its implosion following the Watergate scandal. So did his mentor, Donald Rumsfeld, who had been serving as ambassador to NATO in Brussels. Nixon's successor, President Gerald Ford, engaged Rumsfeld as White House Chief of Staff with Cheney as his deputy. When Rumsfeld was appointed Secretary of Defense, Cheney inherited the Chief of Staff's job, gatekeeper to the Oval Office. Cheney did not keep it long. Ford lost the 1976 presidential election to Jimmy Carter, but Cheney was not done with politics. In 1978, he sought and won Wyoming's only seat in the House of Representatives. He was re-elected 5 times and rose to become House Minority Whip and chair of the House Republican Conference.
I would argue that there is a general understanding by the party, by the Republicans, on the importance of adequate military capability, that's the cornerstone of our security, that it ought to be used, that force, that capability, our purpose, if you will, in international affairs is to promote those values we believe in, democracy, freedom, human rights.
In 1989, President George H.W. Bush named him Secretary of Defense, in which role Cheney oversaw the U.S. invasion of Panama in late 1989 and the U.S.-led eviction of Iraqi forces from Kuwait in early 1991. Cheney's progress in politics was interrupted again by Bush's loss of the 1992 presidential election.
And now I ask that we stand behind our new president, and regardless of our differences, all Americans share the same purpose to make this, the world's greatest nation, more safe and more secure, and to guarantee every American a shot at the American dream. And I would like to thank so many of you who have worked beside me to improve America and to literally change the world.
There was some vague talk of Cheney seeking the Republican nomination himself someday, but three key factors always weighed against it. His health was rickety. He suffered recurrent heart attacks from his late 30s onwards. He would have a heart transplant in 2012. He was protective of his second daughter Mary, a gay woman whose private life would have become public. And he was a notably dismal public speaker.
I have no restrictions at this point in terms of my own activities. With respect to my background in the defense area, it's an issue that set of issues that I've been interested in for a long time. Obviously had some exposure to them during the Ford years when I served as White House Chief of Staff and sat in on all the National Security Council meetings.
Cheney spent much of the 1990s making money as CEO of the colossal energy services multinational Halliburton. He was summoned back to public office by Texas Governor George W. Bush, seeking to bolster his own tilt at the presidency by putting an experienced heavyweight on the ticket. If Cheney, once Bush's narrow victory was eventually confirmed in 2000, had doubts about what he might make of the vice presidency, events, specifically the events of September 11th, 2001, clarified matters for him. Significantly at Cheney's urging, Bush presented the pair of them to the world, to the Middle East especially, as bad cop and worse cop.
All of this was brought upon us in a single day, and night fell on a different world, a world where freedom itself is under attack.
While Bush gave the jut-jawed speeches, Cheney seethed in an assortment of bunkers, scheming to vanquish enemies real, potential, and altogether imaginary.
The United States made our position clear. We could not accept the grave danger of Saddam Hussein and his terrorist allies turning weapons of mass destruction against us or our friends and allies.
He was a significant architect of the invasion of Iraq in 2003, amplifying intelligence about Iraqi weapons of mass destruction, which was widely believed dubious at the time and eventually proved entirely bogus. He was an aggressive enthusiast of the brutal and debatably effective tactics which became known by such sinister euphemisms as enhanced interrogation and extraordinary rendition.
In this case, there are bound to be critics out there. There's no question but what it was controversial. It was the right thing to do. We looked at it very carefully. I was a chief advocate of it, helped get it all set up and established. I believe deeply in what we did. I think it was the right thing to do.
Cheney's vice presidency was a rebuke to that hefty lexicon of jokes about the impotence of the office. He made himself the most powerful person ever to hold it, and for the first 8 years of the 21st century, one of the most powerful people on earth. It is probably arguable that some of what Cheney did with that power, even if furtively and unaccountably, made his fellow citizens safer, but that presents the difficulty of measuring terror attacks which never happened. It is certain, however, that Dick Cheney played a key role in unleashing a war which grievously and lastingly damaged America's reputation and moral authority. He left office with an approval rating among his fellow Americans of 13%, probably not all that far in front of Osama bin Laden. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.
Andrew Muller there on the life and times of Dick Cheney, the former VP of the United States, who's died at the age of 84. We'll, I'm sure, have more on that during the day here on Monocle Radio. Right now, let's catch up on what else is making the agenda. Let's cross over to the other studio. Awaiting us there with the day's other news headlines is Vincent McAviney.
Thanks, Tom. At least 7 climbers, including 5 foreigners and 2 Nepalese, have died after being hit by an avalanche on a Himalayan peak in northeastern Nepal. 8 others have been rescued and are in the capital Kathmandu receiving medical treatment. Peru has broken off diplomatic relations with Mexico after its government granted asylum to former Peruvian Prime Minister Betsy Chavez, who is facing charges related to a 2022 coup attempt. Chavez had sought refuge in the Mexican embassy in Lima. And on-trainer customers in the US have launched a class action lawsuit against the Swiss sports manufacturer over the embarrassing squeaking noise the shoes make. The company is refusing refunds because of the unwanted sounds, prompting customers to seek damages. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Vincent. More news coming your way at the top of the next hour. Right now, though, it's 19 minutes past midday in London. I'm delighted to say we're joined on the line by Monocle's Europe editor-at-large, Mr. Ed Stocker. Good afternoon, Ed.
Good afternoon, Tom.
Now, Ed, we're going to tear into the Italian papers. You've got an absolutely brilliant story that we're going to talk about. But I did want to get your thoughts just on the US elections. We were chatting with Chris Chermak a little bit earlier. And we mentioned, of course, Big Apple, lots happening in a New York mayoral race. I'm sure our listeners will remember, a long-time resident of New York City, a few years back now. What do you make of it? You've got lots of friends and contacts there. What are they talking about? How are they kind of dealing with the narrative around that race in particular, Ed?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, New York was home for 6 years, and I sort of lived there under just one mayor, Bill de Blasio, for my entire time. Times have changed a little bit, although Bill de Blasio wasn't particularly popular, especially by the end of his tenure. Yeah, it's just it's an interesting time. We have a very, very inexperienced front runner, Zoran Mamdani. He's only 34. And I think the interesting thing here is that, you often have very established politicians, you had people like Bloomberg in the past, even Bill de Blasio had been around for a while. This guy, in the space of 8 months, he's gone from sort of nothing to where he is now. At one point, he only had a paid staff of 5 people. And if he wins, he's going to be overseeing a budget of $112 billion, 300,000 employees of the city, and over 8 million people to serve. So that's quite a jump if he is to win it. Of course, he is the sort of progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So in some ways, what's changed even more so since my time in New York is that, America is polarized, but even within the Democratic Party, you have this sort of more traditional wing that is represented by Andrew Cuomo, who is the other person who's running for mayor. He's running as an independent because he lost the primary, of course. And then you have this progressive wing that is led by Mamdani. So we'll have to see how good it is for the Democratic Party, regardless of who wins, Tom.
Yeah, really interesting, Ed, and we'll be keeping a really close eye on that and those other races that Chris was talking about a little bit earlier. But Ed, let's move on. I trailed it at the top of the show. There's this amazing Aerosmith story. I don't want to miss a thing about it, Ed, so do bring us up to speed. What's this all about?
You can't say I don't get to talk about diverse things on Monocle Radio, do you? Do you know that Steven Tyler of Aerosmith... I have to say there are some listeners, maybe some younger listeners, who may not know who Aerosmith are.
Don't cater to them, Ed.
I feel old.
Listen, we're men of a certain vintage. You just plough on. If they don't know, they can Google it afterwards. Crack on.
Yeah, you Google it afterwards. Big band. Anyway, Steven Tyler, you may not know this, Tom, but his real name, his born name, is Steven Victor Tallarico. He's actually of Italian ancestry. His grandfather, Giovanni, is from a very small village in Calabria, in the south of Italy, of just 5,000 people. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is that Steven Tyler reconnected with some of this family over a decade ago. He met one of his cousins after a concert and decided to go and pay a visit to this small village that's called Cotrone. He went there back in 2013. He met relatives. Everyone was there to see him, and they proposed this idea: why not do a museum in the village of your grandfather? Well, you can put your memorabilia there. It's your link to your past. He was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do that. Sounds fantastic. Since then, it all went a bit wrong. Essentially, he had only one condition. He said it needs to be in the house that my grandfather lived in, Palazzo Bevilacqua. The old family residence has to be the site of the museum. Of course, everyone agreed to that. They went and got some money from the region Calabria. They got 1.3 million euros for this museum. And then subsequently, a whole lot of dodgy things happened, including including moving the site of the museum without advising old Steven Tyler that was going to be the case. When he did find out, he was not happy, and of course issued a cease and desist letter, which is sort of why we found ourselves in this situation right now. That was back in 2022. Since then, the prosecutor's office has opened an investigation of the current and former mayor over their behaviour in all this, really.
Good grief, Ed. Now, tell me, what's motivating old Mr. Tyler here? Because, you know, he's a big character. He's got a lot of bigger fish to fry, one I imagine. Is this one of these classic stories where a bit of sweet emotion is getting in the way?
I see what you did there.
That's the second one. You didn't even notice the first one, Ed, but do carry on.
Did I miss the first one?
Oh, yes.
I'm sharp today. So, I mean, he doesn't basically, you know, he wanted something that was linked to his family. It was where his grandfather was born. As I mentioned, his name's Giovanni. He, of course, subsequently emigrated to the US. It's where he also got married as well. So there's an emotional tie to this house. You know, the fact that the municipality went and just moved the location to something that is in no way linked to his family, he decided that he didn't want to be involved with this project anymore for that very reason. And so he's got his family involved. His cousin, who is based there, is his lawyer as well. So he's the one bearing the brunt of this and dealing with it. But things have gone very messy. And 15 people are under investigation currently in that small village in Calabria.
Goodness. I think he's probably going to continue to walk this way, don't you think, Ed, from here on
Would you stop it now? You know, there's going to be people who aren't going to get these jokes as well. The people who've never heard of Aerosmith.
That makes it all the more amusing to me. And surely that's the only thing that counts. Ed, we better leave it there.
As long as you make yourself laugh.
Listen, the pun police will be in. Ed, great to chat with you. Thanks for joining us on the programme. That's our Ed Stocker on the line from Milan. You're listening to The Briefing here on Monocle Radio. We are wrapping up today's briefing in Tokyo. The Tokyo International Film Festival, one of the largest in Asia, is in full swing. Among its many showcases is Asian Future, a competition celebrating the early work of emerging directors from across the region. Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi spoke with the filmmakers behind 2 entries in that category.
The first film we are introducing from Tokyo International Film Festival's Asian Future selection is a Japanese documentary titled Journey into Sato Tadao. It's also the opening film of this category. This film followed the life of Japanese film critic Sato Tadao, who spent 60 years building the history of Japanese cinema and later made it his life's work to discover and promote Asian films. This documentary takes viewer on a journey through Japan, South Korea, and Kerala province in India to explore his life and passion. I spoke with the director of this film, Mizuho Terasaki.
この映画では例えばクローズアップが一つもない。
It all started when I went to see him. He showed us his diary, which was titled The Search for Asian Films. This diary was about how he searched for various Asian films and that process. And also at the same time, I thought that we should start really thinking about how Japanese could coexist with the other Asian countries and Asian people. Maybe it is possible through movies.
She shared her thoughts on having her film selected as the opening title for the Asian Future selection.
インドに行った時に When I went to India, and Korea too, everybody knew Sato Tadao's name. And the reason is because he had researched and wrote books about Japanese films, and they have read those books or his articles on it. That was the reason why they were so cooperative with this documentary. And what really stuck to my mind is the fact that Sato Tadao-san was the type of person who wanted to be fair and see any films from any small countries. And that's the way he picked and saw these movies and loved them. Mr. Sato was the leader for Asian filmmakers to work hand in hand. It's good to know that film festivals like TIFF keep that bond together for the future. And I'm honored that my documentary is being screened as the opening film at that film festival.
The second film we are introducing is The Greatest Funeral Hits. This Turkish film is an anthology drama. Each part tells a different life story, and as the film goes on, these sections gradually connect in a unique way. I spoke with the director and the producer of this film, Ziya Demirel, and screenwriter Yusuftan Demirel.
Gözlerin kimseye ümit vermesin.
My name is Yusuftan Demirel, and I'm one of the co-writers.
I'm Ziya Demirel. I am other co-writer and the director of the film. About the film, I could say that they all look like they are chapters on their own in a way, but they have internet love affair. They have this very long relationship. There are seemingly unrelated characters, but we have this common theme and also common actions.
I asked them what they think about the current state and the potential of Turkish film industry.
I mean, industry-wise, it's getting big. There are lots of series made, but like the quality, I think it's very low. There is like a censorship, but they act like there is no censorship. It's very star-oriented in a way.
There is no budgets for art house films.
Yes, and like the support is again very due to, unfortunately, the content. And people who are deciding what to support or not in the ministry, they are not filmmakers, and they more have like political agendas. So in a way, even independent film cinema in Turkey is not very independent. But there is a great talent of acting in especially in Turkey, and there are like quite nice literature works that they could be adapted and stuff. I mean, there are very good directors.
And there are certain, I think, images that are expected from Turkey by European festivals too sometimes. Let's say more pastoral images, if a story is set in a village, etc., these kind of things.
For Monocle, in Tokyo International Film Festival, I'm Ryuma Takahashi.
Thanks indeed to Ryuma for that report. The Tokyo International Film Festival continues in the Japanese capital through tomorrow. That, though, is all we have time for on today's edition of The Briefing, which was expertly produced by Vincent McAviney and Laura Kramer. Our researcher was Joanna Moser. Our studio manager was Lily Austin. Thanks, everybody, for putting today's show together. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, noon in London. But from me, Tom Edwards, and the rest of the Tuesday Briefing team, goodbye, and thank you very much for tuning in.